Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This is the first video that I'm recording in the new year. So happy new year to all of you. Here's to lots of chess improvement, chess elo gains, or whatever goals you have. I hope they all come true in this new year. So yeah, this game that I'm covering now, it was not played in the new year. This was my last game of 2024. My last game was round 5 of Rilton Cup, and I faced Felix Tulchinsky from Ukraine. I hope I did not butcher that name. I was confused whether I should pronounce it in the English way or not, and then, okay, anyway. I played against a 2300 FIDE master, and he also is pretty young. So I knew that it was going to be challenging, but yeah, let's see what happened. E4 is what my opponent played, and well, I prepared against anything but e4. So when my opponent played e4, which isn't the move that he doesn't play as often, I was of course surprised. And I thought, well, let's play the French again, e6, d4, d5, knight c3. And here I thought, okay, my opponent surely has something prepared. And I remember not having good results in this line actually recently. So d takes e4. We're just going to capture that pawn on e4. Knight takes e4, knight f6. And yeah, I realized in a few moves that knight f6 is maybe not the right move. I got a bit confused with the bishop g5 line. But of course, my opponent is not going to play bishop g5 here. If my opponent can play knight takes, knight f3, I have to play h6 to stop bishop g5 because that can get really annoying. And now h4, and I thought this was really annoying because my opponent is really trying hard to make bishop g5 work. Instead of all of this, I should have just played knight d7 to prepare knight f6, so I capture back with the knight on f6. But yeah, obviously I have to mess it up in the opening, as always. So this is what happened, h4, and it turns out that bishop g5 is actually not that dangerous. I played g6 because I really wanted to prevent everything possible, but apparently this is not the right way. I mean, I guess if you realize that bishop g5 is not so scary, then you'll play something else. But I thought, let's say I play, I don't know, let's say b6. If bishop g5 takes, I was going to take on f3 at some point, but I guess rook takes, pawn takes, and yeah, it's quite an imbalanced position, and this is not really what you're looking for. I guess maybe b6 was not really necessary. Let's assume the pawn is on b7, because then queen takes f3 is possible, because now you're just losing that rook on the a8, right? But yeah, the idea is that, let's say here, and let's pretend that the rook is not hanging on a8. It's a very imbalanced position, and I thought, yeah, I may be fine here, but I don't really like it. So that's why I thought I want to prevent all of this and make sure that I play g6, and my queen is defending the rook, so everything is fine. Bishop e3, knight d7, queen d2, bishop g7. I played those moves quickly, but as you can see from my time management, it was really difficult to come up with the right plan here, because where do my pieces go? The position is so sad. I cannot really push the pawn on to c5. My king has trouble castling because the pawn on h6 it will be hanging. I was thinking of castling long, but then how will I be able to defend my position? First of all, how do I develop this bishop on c8? So a lot of problems in my position. My opponent went for long castle, a6. I have to do something. Knight e5, queen e7. Of course, if I take, there's pawn takes, and if queen takes, queen d8 mate, so don't do that. But then, okay, queen e7, you think that you're covering everything? No, there's bishop c5. And I thought, yeah, this is really bad. You still have like queen d7 and you're still alive, but in the long run, there's no way that this king will survive, right? I mean, this is terrible. I can't even castle. So that's why I went for queen e7 immediately. f4, h5. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm trying to control the g4 square. Now that the g5 square is not really interesting for my opponent anymore, I can give it up. But yeah, it felt really sad. Bishop e2, knight f6, c4, bishop d7, bishop f3. This looked like a disaster. I was really not happy during the game. But the one thing that I was happy about was my time. So as you can see from the clocks, I'm up on time. That's really rare, okay? That's really rare. And I thought, well, maybe I can put pressure on the clock here because my opponent was spending quite some time too, despite me being the one struggling a lot because I had a difficult time finding moves. Like, I don't even know what to move. It's hard to find it when all the time spent is just finding a move, not just like which move is the best among these three options. Let's say no, I'm finding a move and I cannot find it. But anyway, I went for rook b8 in over here in this position because I defend the pawn on b7, and I thought, well, I need to get out of that pin, and maybe I get to play b5 in some crazy world, right? Queen e2. Well, this was the moment that I went for b5. I thought I have to do something. My opponent for knight c6, and my opponent fell for my trap. So this looks very appealing, right? But my ultimate goal was to trade this bishop off for that knight, because that knight is disastrous for me. My bishop on d7 is useless. So if I can trade that bishop for that knight, amazing. My bishop on g7 can come back to life soon. This knight has a lot of potential, and maybe I get some attack on the queen side. Bishop takes c6, bishop takes, and I play king f8 because I accepted that I'm not going to castle. If you end up castling at some point in this game, then you will suffer in here because it's really hard to defend the king on the king side. So I went for king f8, c takes b5, and my opponent took the bait. He thought he was winning the pawn, but after takes, knight d5, and without realizing, apparently there is a trap that I set up. I didn't even realize. I just wanted to stop that pawn and centralize the knight. But once my opponent played bishop c4, it took me quite some time to realize that there's a tactic here. If you have not seen the game, can you find it? Can you find the winning move here for black? It's not super winning, but I mean, given the circumstances, I would call it a win. I played the move knight to c3. This move, I saw it at first, and the funny thing is that I thought, oh, but what happens if my opponent just moves a queen? What's the point? I didn't realize that there's a rook hanging. I didn't realize that this was a fork. Because obviously I calculated that this, queen a3, king d2, rook b2 check, and I take the queen, and that's cool. But I didn't realize that. So I thought my opponent doesn't have to take, and then my opponent can just move the queen, but turns out there's a rook on d1 hanging too. My opponent actually gave up that rook. I think maybe taking on c3 right away would have been better, practically speaking, because it's difficult to convert that. At least I thought it was quite difficult to convert, but maybe I'm wrong. But at least now, knight takes d1, rook takes d1, this felt easier to play because I have many more pieces, and once I start capturing pawns, then I'm really happy. Which I did. Queen takes h4, bishop e2, queen e7 back, simply defending the pawn on c7, bishop f6. My opponent puts that bishop on f3 in a really clever way because he's controlling that a8 square. If this pawn reaches the final rank, then of course it's a different story. So my opponent is trying to push that pawn forward, obviously. a4, king g7, bishop c6. I'm trying to put my king in a safe square, and I want to involve that rook in the game, right? Queen b4, queen c3, queen b6. I don't want to trade queens. I did not see queen c3 coming, but I don't want to trade queens. And fortunately, there's no d5 here because bishop takes c3, right? So a5, and I was really happy about this move because I knew that that pawn is now going to be very weak. Because I play queen a6, I'm just camping over there on a6, just waiting for my opponent to do something. And indeed, my opponent for b4. And I thought, yes! Because now I play rook takes b4, I sacrifice the exchange back to win some pawns, because not only did I just win a pawn, I'm going to win another one on g2 because it's check. So king d2 takes, king d3, my opponent is trying to centralize the king, and that way the rook will be able to support the pawn on a5. Rook a8, I'm just trying to stop that pawn altogether. I could probably have pushed the pawn, but why would I push that pawn if I can just put the rook on the a file, stop the pawn. Now I push the pawn because if a6, rook takes, and queen f1 check. So that way I am winning the pawn, another pawn, and this will be easy win. So here, that's why I pushed the pawn. My opponent went for queen b1, so now queen d5. Once again, if a6, there's rook takes, and now queen f5, and I'm winning the queen instead. So once again, my opponent cannot push the pawn, plays queen a2, I give a check, queen c4, queen f5, king e2, rook takes a5, and now I have officially won the pawn. So rook takes, queen c6, queen a2 check, king f1, and now queen d5, centralizing the queen and also supporting the pawn to promote. If my opponent doesn't trade queens, then I'm just pushing the pawn, and that's why my opponent traded queens, but this is obviously winning because I am up 3 pawns already. So after king h5, this is when my opponent resigned, and this was my win, the last game of the year ending in a win. I mean, I was over the moon. I was over the moon because this game I felt really good about it, like coming back from such a terrible position and then also finishing it like this. I was super happy. So, yeah, crazy game. Really fortunate, feeling fortunate to come back from that horrible position. And yeah, um, really happy about winning this game, of course. So, really happy about this. I will not tell you what happened in the next game just yet. You may know it already, but the recap of that will be up very soon as well. As during the rest day, I was just taking it easy and I did not really feel like recording anything. So I was just really chill. And New Year's celebration here in Stockholm was amazing. It was so fun counting down to the new year. And once again, Happy New Year, everyone. And thanks for watching. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!